With the foundations laid, Clement's vision for Ohrid evolved into a grand architectural feat of the mind. He appointed Gorazd, a scholar of sharp intellect and steady hand, to oversee the lower scriptorium. Thousands of students were now streaming into the Kutmichevica region, drawn by the promise of a literacy that finally spoke their heart tongue. Clement stood with Gorazd atop the monastery walls, watching the dawn light touch the valley where thousands of quills were being sharpened for the day's labor. The greatest challenge remained the script itself. Clement and Nahum spent their evenings in the library, distilling the complex, mystical glagolitic into a more streamlined form. They needed a script that could be written with the speed of a merchant's ledger, but retain the dignity of Holy Scripture. Nahum watched as Clement moved a candle closer to a fresh piece of vellum, carefully rounding the edges of a letter to match the efficiency of the Greek uncial, while preserving the Slavic sound. The school was no longer just a monastery. It was a university of the soul. Gorazd organized the students into tiers, and Lumina, a brilliant young woman who had mastered the old scripts in record time, was tasked with training the newest initiates. In the open-air courtyard, Lumina paced between the rows of benches, correcting the posture of students who were more accustomed to the plow than the pen. She knew that every steady stroke was a victory against the encroaching silence of history. Literacy was a fire that needed fuel, and that fuel was parchment. Lumina and Sava worked in the drying rooms, overseeing the preparation of thousands of animal skins. It was a grueling physical process of scraping and stretching that preceded the delicate work of the ink. Lumina held up a finished sheet of pale, smooth vellum, showing Sava how to check for imperfections. Without this canvas, the new Cyrillic alphabet would have nowhere to live, and the voice of their people would remain unheard. As the administration of the Bulgarian Empire grew, the need for a vernacular bureaucracy became urgent. Clement met with Preslav, a royal envoy sent from the capital, to discuss the translation of legal codes. The Greek texts were precise but alien to the local judges. Clement handed Preslav a newly translated scroll of civil law, written in the clear, authoritative Cyrillic script. This was the moment the alphabet shifted from a religious tool to a pillar of statehood. The mission moved from the scriptorium to the soil. Preslav traveled to the outlying villages, accompanied by a local guide named Zoran. In the center of a small village square, Preslav unrolled a proclamation. Zoran watched as the villagers gathered, their faces etched with confusion, until Preslav began to read. For the first time, the law of the land was not a mystery whispered by foreigners, but a living word they could understand, spoken in the cadence of their own ancestors. Clement knew that for the script to truly take root, it had to belong to the workers and the dreamers. He invited Zoran to the monastery to see where the books were born. Sitting on a stone wall overlooking the lake, Clement showed Zoran a simple primer designed for children. He explained that one day, Zoran's own sons would not just hear the word, but hold it in their hands. The gap between the holy elite and the humble farmer was finally closing. The great sending arrived in the year 900. The first 3,000 graduates of the Ohrid school were ready. Gorazd and Nahum stood at the monastery gates, distributing leather satchels filled with inkwells and manuscripts to the departing scholars. These men and women were the new apostles, destined for the far reaches of the Slavic lands. As the first group began their trek, Nahum felt a heavy sense of accomplishment. The spark they had nurtured in Ohrid was about to become a sun. In his final years as bishop, Clement worked with Lumina to finalize the Ohrid Standard, a definitive guide to Cyrillic orthography. They sat in the quiet of the scriptorium, the air cool and smelling of old wood. Lumina dipped her quill and wrote the final line of the manual, her hand now as steady as Clement's had once been. He watched her, realizing that the school had done more than create books. It had created a lineage of guardians for the Slavic soul. Clement walked one last time through the halls of his cathedral, the walls echoing with the soft chanting of students in the nearby courtyard. He looked at the vast library he had built, a fortress of ink that no sword could ever pierce. He understood that while he would eventually return to the earth, the letters he had refined would travel across mountains and centuries. The Slavic world was no longer a collection of tribes, but a civilization of the book, united by a script that was as enduring as the stone of Ohrid itself.